Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to know how many sets to do for a workout. Depending on what type of split you're doing. You might have decided that you want to do a 3-day split, for instance, or a 4-day split. And then of course, the question is, how many sets should you do for that split? So one thing I think a lot of people need to do, at least once in their life anyway, or a few times, is to find out, based on what their body's telling them, how many sets is efficient in some way, shape, or form. Now, I understand it's impossible to know all of the different idiosyncrasies that can happen when it comes down to training, because sometimes you may make false leaps of logic based on what you're noticing, but you know, you got to start somewhere. And I think a lot of people get a little bit too cerebral about this process, and they start to just follow things that are told to them, which are great. I mean, these are all templates to start with, but you may find that you need to push the limit once in a while just to find out where that threshold is. So the first thing I would do, if you're not really sure of how many sets to do for a given body part, I would first decide what type of split I'm doing, whether it's a 3-day, 4-day, whatever, right? Then I would train those prescribed body parts in a given day, and I would do, say, maybe 10 sets, or 8 sets, or 5 sets, whatever it is I decide. And then I would find out, or I would sit on my laurels and find out how long it takes for the muscles to feel like they're back at full strength again, and they're not so sore that I can barely think about doing the same exercises again, right? So say day 1 you're doing squats, and then you're doing lunges, and maybe you're doing some leg press or hamstrings or whatever it is you're doing. And then you notice that when you come around to doing legs again about 3 days later, if you're too sore to train, perhaps you've done too many sets. It's that simple, right? It's that simple. Now, another way to approach this, and this is one way I did it, is that I went into the gym and I said, okay, I'm going to destroy the body part that I'm training. I'm going to do as many sets as possible until it feels like there's just no push left, right? So, you know, say it's chest, I was doing like 4 or 5 sets of bench, and then I do 4 or 5 sets of flat dumbbell, then 4 or 5 sets of incline, then 4 or 5 sets of incline dumbbell. Then I go do some flies, and then maybe a machine press or something. Just totally destroyed the chest. And then I would do my next body parts or whatever with the same sort of strategy in place. And then I would see how long it took for my chest to feel perfect again, whether it's 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and so forth. And what I did find out is that it didn't matter how much volume I did. There was a certain amount of days that I automatically was healed, whether I was doing low or high amount of volume. So I found that then I started to mess around with frequency and see what is the most efficient frequency based on my body's capacity to heal from workouts. So I found out that if I was waiting 4 days or 5 days between training sessions for a given body part, it was too long, because my body would be recovered no matter what volume I did by about 3 days into it, right? So for the most part anyway. I mean, sometimes there were certain body parts that didn't seem to recover, but most of them did seem to recover for sure around the 4-day mark or 5-day. So I figured out that a little bit higher frequency with less volume was a little bit more efficient. So then I started playing around with a 2-day split, and how many sets do I need to do in order to have a good workout, but at the same time still be recovered mostly by the time I get to the body part a couple days later again. And so that's how I'd start to play around with the sets. But it wasn't like there was just a standard template, right? So there's a couple different philosophies. Some people are more in the obliterate the body part and then wait for it to heal. And then other people are more into the callus principle that I talk about, where it's a constant easing the body into adaptation by immersing it into the environment of adaptation over and over again. And then from there, you are doing enough stimulation to stimulate the muscle, but not so much that it cannot recover by the time you hit that muscle group again. So that's more my strategy, although I do adopt the obliteration approach from time to time, but I do find the callus principle is a very relevant way of making sure that your body continues to progress. So yeah, some of you guys in the comments were asking, what type of split program do I do right now? How often do I train my body parts? Guess what? The answer is on my website. 2-day split is usually what I stick with as my foundation, and then I'll play around with whole body and 2-day splits and super high frequency sort of programs as well. So that's basically my short answer on that. But if you're really curious about what I'm doing, then just go to my website, naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and I do have the actual programs on my website that you can purchase and use on your own or experiment with. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this gives you a little bit of insight of how to choose the correct amount of sets to obliterate or ease your body part into growth. If you like this sort of stuff, if you like talking about training, if you like talking about the philosophy behind all this stuff, I have a podcast that I do every week on Patreon, so make sure you check that out. And thanks a lot to these Patreon supporters who support the entire process, so thanks guys. Mountain. So yeah, if you need to get hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com and take care for now.